Today I'll be showing how you can use Text.Combine when you do a grouping. In my case, I have months and salespeople, and I want to do a grouping based on months. So I have one column where all the salespeople that made a sale that month is in that one line. So in other words, turning this into 4 rows, and these salespeople should be grouped. First, I just say transform and group by. And I want advanced because I want to show the logic behind group by, and that's easier to show like this. I'm going to add 2 columns. One is the sum, and I can't exactly do a sum on a text string. That doesn't make any sense, but I just want to show the logic. And another one would be all rows, again to show the logic. And we'll just call this all, and that will give OK. And then again, this is an error, and like I expected, my 12 or so rows become 4 rows. I get an error in count because you can't do math on text. So if we just split this function into more rows so it's more clear what's going on. What's happening is I'm doing table.group, and my table is the prior step, which is just change type. I am grouping based on one column. I could have multiple columns if I wanted, say, month and year. And each column in my new table is then within curly brackets. So the name is count, and then I'm saying for each row, use list.sum on the month column. Because what's happening is you have a table with 13 rows, and that gets pressed together. So January has 2 rows, but that becomes 1 row. And the values in my salespeople column becomes 1 cell with 2 values. That's how I think of it. So any function that can handle a list, like list.sum, can take this as an argument and then try to combine these two and do math on it. But of course you can't do math on text, but you can do a Text.Combine, because normally Text.Combine would be if I add a new column here which just has the text ABC. If I then were to do a normal Text.Combine, which is just add a column and then merge columns, and I'll say I want a separator of comma space, then we get this function. For each row, do a Text.Combine where I combine the value of the current row from the month column with the value of the current row in the custom column with a separator. And I'm also adding this step so I can copy paste the code. It's doing exactly what I want to do, but here I am creating a list, because notice that I have these curly brackets around. I am creating a list where my list is the current row's value in months, which is January, and the current value of the row in custom column, which is ABC. So this is a list with 2 values. You can think of this like a CSV, where I have the 2 rows, which are now 2 values with a separator. And I'm saying, what do I want to do with them? Well, I want to combine them with a separator of a comma and space. So now I can delete that. And then the reason why I wanted to add this count column is that I can go up here and manipulate. That is, I want to change this function. So I'm adding an extra column, even though it doesn't make sense. It's just easier to go in here and change things, if that makes any sense. So I want to group, even though that does make sense, what I'm doing, the actual action. But because I can go in and change the formula, it's easier to change the formula than write it yourself. My formula was not list.sum, but I want to do a Text.Combine, but I can't use my months or my custom because that doesn't make sense. But what I've done is I need salespeople in here, and I actually don't need the curly brackets, because like I said, what's going on behind the scenes is that my table is being pressed together. It becomes compact. So all of the values from my salespeople column becomes 1 cell with many values. So now I get exactly what I expect here. So again, just as my months become squished together into one value, but because I'm grouping by it, then it just takes the one value because it's looking, okay, how many unique values do I have in months? And that's how many rows I get. And then the column that I originally had, salespeople, gets compressed. So these two rows become one row, which means I can do Text.Combine, even though again, normally you do Text.Combine on multiple columns because that creates a list with multiple values. But the salespeople column has been compressed, so it's one cell with multiple values, and then I can do Text.Combine on it. If that makes sense. It took a bit for me to understand, but it makes intuitive sense to me. And then I had one other thing I wanted to show, which was, this would be the normal way, but you can see how here I have duplicates, because we had Fubuki who did multiple sales, because she's a very good fox. But what I want to show is also you don't have to do this operation. You can actually manipulate the table, because here in the grouping, now my screwdriver icon is, or actually gear icon is gone, because I've gone and manipulated my function. So it doesn't do what I want it to do anymore. But instead of doing that count here where I replace a function, that might be a little intimidating. What you can do instead is you can add a custom column where we use the Text.Combine. I would consider this the not the slow method, but the one where we add more steps. It's a little more, we're working through the problem and seeing the intermediate steps. So I'm adding Text.Combine, and then I want to say Text.Combine. And then what I have to add is, I'm cheating, so I have my notes on the other screen. I want to say I should take the value from the all column of my real table, which is the one I'm adding a column to, but then the value of my current row in the all column is a table. So right now this doesn't make any sense. I'm referring to a whole table. So actually, just for the sake of argument, I want to see what happens. I think what would happen is it takes both the month and salespeople and combine them. I just want to see, okay, it's just not happy. Well, the point of these videos is also me experimenting. So it doesn't understand what I want to do when I'm referring to a whole table. But if I then add, because I know the column is named salespeople, now I'm saying I want you to go in for each row in this table, go into the all column, and then the all column actually has a table. So the table inside the all column, go into the salespeople column and grab that value. And then there can be multiple values because I've done grouping, which we can see here. Salespeople, I have 2, and again, Text.Combine takes a list, and here I have a list because a column is also a list, and I get my text. But if we want to get rid of duplicates, one way to do that would be we need the Table.Distinct function. I just want to see what happens if I use the Table.Distinct function on this table. I don't think it will work, but again, I'm experimenting. So I want to remove duplicates. I just want to see if that works. It doesn't look like that works, which I kind of hope, because that would be very, it would make a lot of sense when you're trying it out for yourself, because this is just, again, we're having these intermediate steps, but if it makes it make more sense for you, then you should do it. Because we can see Corona comes up multiple times. So that didn't work, but we can take the logic here. I can copy the function, and then I want to say I want to add a new column where I do what I did before. So actually, let's just copy paste that also. But now, instead of referring to this salespeople, the all table and the salespeople table, I actually want to refer to a different table. And the other table I want to refer to is a Table.Distinct function. And that was what I just copy pasted. I am saying I want to use a combine function on text, And what list do I want to act on? Well, I want to use the Table.Distinct function to grab a list, which is a column, but then here I'm not referring to the added custom step, which is this current step. I'm referring to the all column. I'm saying I'm treating this column as a table because for each row, the value in the all column is a table. So I want to, for each row of my this 4-row table, I want to go into the all column and grab the table here and apply the Table.Distinct function on that. And then I'm not referring to the all column. I want to retrieve the salespeople column. So I'm saying go into the table inside the all column. I want you to take the unique values from the salespeople column, and then the Table.Distinct function returns a column, and then I use that as my table. So I'm not using the all table anymore. I'm using my Table.Distinct function. And then I have my closed normal parentheses here. So this will return a table. I hope it makes sense for you, because it makes sense for me, but I don't think I'm explaining it well. So one more time, just to make it make sense for me too. I'm saying Table.Distinct, so go into the table for each row, which is found in the all column. And then I want to say I only want the unique values, that is the unique rows where I have salespeople. Because I only have the 2 columns, it's not really a problem that I'm filtering. And I don't care about something like day, like what date was the sale, or what is the amount they sold, or what item did they sell. I only care about the person. So I'm removing all columns that don't have a unique value. And then that returns multiple. That returns a table with 1 row for each salesperson. And then I'm going inside that table into its salespeople column, and I'm using the Text.Combine on that. And then I'm adding a separator. So I think it makes sense for me, but probably not for anyone else. So here, because I have 2 values, which we can see here in the salespeople, I have 2. So there's no difference between the normal Text.Combine and no duplicates. But here I have 4 unique salespeople, but I have, what is that, 8 people, yeah. So Corona and then Corona again. So we remove the second instance. If you had something like you also wanted to grab what is the maximum value maybe, then this method might not work. That is, you want to grab both the salesperson's name and their biggest sale, because then you'd have to sort this table. And I'm not sure if you can sort a table that is in here. I don't know if you can sort that, but I will try that off camera just because I'm curious. So with the help of Google, I managed to find a function that does what I wanted it to do. Here is the... Now I need to delete that. This is the URL, and it's called the table.sort on a nested table. Here what I added was table.sort, the nested table column, which is all in my case, and then my nested header in the curly bracket quotation mark syntax, and then order ascending. What I thought I could do was, if I just sort this other column and then I try to manipulate the function. So here it's saying the table I'm acting upon is the added custom 1, and then the name of the column is then count, but my column, my table is actually that, the all column, and then the name of my table, or the column I want to sort on, is salespeople, but then it isn't very happy with that. But I guess because now it doesn't know what I'm referring to, because it doesn't grab the added custom 1 table, which is the one I'm actually acting on. So maybe if I'm lucky, I can say that I'm acting on the added custom 1. So I actually need to copy that. I'm just being curious. So I'm saying this is the table I'm acting on, and it's actually custom one, and I'm acting on the column all from this one, which returns a table, and then I wanted to sort on salespeople, but it can't convert a list to type table. But this function at least works, where instead of actually sorting my table, which is what I wanted to do, it's adding a new column. So I'm saying table.add column. I'm adding a column to the pre-existing table here, custom one. And I'm doing a nested sort, that's the name of the column. And I'm saying for each row, do a table.sort on the table found within the all column. But then that is the column all, which is found in the table added custom one. So I was hoping I could get around having to add a new column, but this works. Now you get the first value. So if you had something like sales, where you wanted both the salesperson's name and their top sale, or what was maybe the item that they had the biggest sale on, here could have salespeople, and then what was the item they sold, what was the date they sold on, how much profit did we make. You could then sort the salespeople table here based on the profit margin, and say, okay, so I want instead of having Text.Combine with just the salespeople, you have Text.Combine with salespeople and their biggest sale of that month, and then a separator to the other value. But that's out of scope of this video at least. I just wanted to see if I could do what I wanted to do. So yep,